welcome to episode 11 of the Ref Bump, being joined once again by Jeff the Hitman Hall. My name is Codd Sinclair. Today we are taking a look at WCW Slamboree 1998. This is in the month of May, coming from Massachusetts, and it was being advertised as a double main event. This was probably the height of the war between WWF and WCW. We didn't know what was ahead of us coming at the end of this year into the new year. But we're looking at 1998 as being a really crazy year. What do you remember most, Jeff, about either the Monday Night Wars, or like the height of the Attitude Era versus WCW? What do you remember the most?
Well, living through and watching, at the height of it, I mean, I think you had wrestling was everywhere. Like, you had your boom in the 80s with Vince McMahon and the Rock and wrestling. And like, I guess that kind of introduced Hulk Hogan, made you say your prayers and eat your vitamins to get you into wrestling. But here in the Attitude Era on Raw, post Hulk Hogan and, all the other players for WCW, I mean, it just was a good place and time to be. I mean, you couldn't find, I would like to say, we talk about this all the time on the show. This is kind of the last time where, like your grandma, your aunt, your uncle probably knew 10, 15 wrestlers, you could walk down the street and ask a random person who this wrestler was, and they probably knew who you were talking about. And that's both sides, either or. But yeah, just a good time to be a wrestling fan. And I'm honest on the show. Not everything they did was the greatest, Codd, but in hindsight, it was still good stuff in a different world, also different time. Everybody wasn't as offended, and you could get away with a hell of a lot more back then. But yeah, great time to be alive. Great wrestling. Watching Raw on one TV while you record WCW and the other, per my dad, on VHS. They just don't get any better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you would record it on your VHS, and then you catch a little bit of like a snippet of like the last week's because you didn't record like right at the right moment, and then right into that week's. V8 VHS.
Oh yeah.
This is also a time where you could walk around. You could walk down the street with a Diamond Dallas Page shirt on, and people would walk by you and be like, "Oh, babe!"
We were just roaming freely, just like a bunch of horses just running around a pasture as much as you like, and we didn't have tin horns coming out of our head. Everybody was on board.
Yeah. So this is one that is essentially focused on the split of the New World Order that is coming up on its 2-year anniversary. Obviously, Bad Bash's Beach, 1996. Hulk Hogan was the infamous third man. And, now 2 years later, we're talking about a potential split. I don't think there was anybody that looked at the NWO at the time and was like, "Oh, this is dumb. This is stupid." It was literally the hottest thing in professional wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely, smoking hot.
Yeah. So this is also weird because Hulk Hogan is not on this card, and for those that don't know, at the time, Hulk Hogan is your WCW World Heavyweight Champion. He had, I don't know if you want to go more into this. There's a little thing in the business that at this time, and possibly relevant in today's time, it's called Backstage Politics.
Man, and Hogan is definitely the king of them.
Yeah.
And even you got guys in the company later on down the line where, you got fast counts, and you don't know if it's, well, if Hogan's got pull like that, quick counts. Hogan's got pull like that. So this is, he's definitely the guy. And when you're the guy, I mean, you never want to let it go. And, even to this day,
Yeah, and as bad as Raw and SmackDown are current day, they still have their world champion on the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That's not a thing anymore where I have creative control in my contract, so I'm just not going to work this show or this show. No, you're going to be on the show. It's just
yeah, and you're also getting this time where these contracts are new, but you're getting all types of not weird stuff, but like Hall and Nash, like, hey, we're paid the highest, but the higher the bar goes up, the more we get paid. So we, to some extent, we have an endless pay scale or raise built into our contracts that you guys signed. So, so these contracts are starting to get to, well, I want this, I want money, and I want creative control, and I want this. It's getting into waters that we had never seen at this point.
Yeah. Speaking of waters we've never seen, to open this show, to see Eric Bischoff challenge Vince McMahon to a fight.
Yeah.
And for even head of WCW security, Doug Dillinger, waiting.
Dougie.
Yeah. Waiting with a full access security pass for Vince when he comes. Obviously, he's not going to show up. But this seemed really desperate for me. It just this was very awkward for me because you knew that Vince McMahon wasn't going to come on the show.
Yeah.
And you have him out here saying, "Oh, I'm going to challenge you to fight. Come here," to not even, Starcade or or Bash at the Beach, just a B level show, and that's not because Slamboree's had some good stuff. Past, but the one WCW pay per view that would be the equivalent to, say, a WrestleMania would more than likely be would more than likely be Starcade, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's their biggest show. And for it not to happen there, but I mean, and obviously we know how this plays out, but WCW, I think, didn't jump the WWE shark, but they jumped their own shark. And when you do that, you crash and burn. But yeah, the balls to come out there and do that to Vince McMahon, and knowing everything we know about Vince McMahon, obviously not personally, but just knowing him and his character and all the stuff you've taken in from interviews and this, that, and other, like, one, Vince actually probably wouldn't mind going out there and having a fight because it's just how Vince is. But he, people would have stopped him. He wasn't going to do that. But I mean, it definitely added to everything about this. And again, being in this time, in this era, like the internet is actually pretty new, and there's like dirt sheets, but like now we say dirt sheets because they're online. No, these were actually like dirt sheets, as in paper, So it's just crazy to look back and see how prehistoric it feels sometimes. Like, how are we ever watching wrestling without the internet? Like, everybody, easy, but it just blows your mind sometimes.
Yeah, but this was a nothing segment for me to open the show. But it led to one of my more favorite matches on this card, and that is Fit Finlay, good old Fit, defending his WCW World Television Championship against Chris Benoit. And it's funny that this is the first WCW pay-per-view that Finlay has been on since Uncensored 96.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He had a match with Lord Steven Regal on that show that was very solid. It was very good. If you haven't seen it, I don't even know if it's on Peacock because they're still moving the network library over, so there's still some things not in there. But I would there. If not, I'm sure you could Google it and find it. But this is exactly what you would expect. Chris Benoit, just really hitting his stride in WCW, and Fit Finlay, who is a solid mat technician. He's a physical guy. I enjoyed this match. Up until a certain point, I enjoyed this match. But I'll get to that in a sec. What did you think about the work rate in this?
I think I know what you're going with this. Yeah, I agree. This match was really good, and it started, but half of it was really good. Well, I don't know. I mean, not half of it. A lot of it was really good, Codd.
Well, let's just get to it. Benoit gets a chair. Uses it. Referee's discretion.
Yeah.
Good old Nick Patrick. I don't know. The crowd popped for it, so I guess maybe that was the reason. He just
jokes on us, I guess. Yeah.
So he was just going with it. But then Booker T comes to ringside, and storyline, this makes sense. Because they had just had a match at a Spring Stampede, and he had actually cost Booker T the title to Fit Finlay in that. But eventually Finlay gets the win. He retains the title. I've got it at a solid 3 out of 5. I had it at 3.5, and then Nick Patrick, I know it just kind of irked me, but that was WCW. And then the whole Booker T thing I could have done without. The match would have been fine. The highlight of the finish, though, is that Finlay was using a tombstone as his finisher at the time, which I thought was excellent.
Was he ever?
Yeah, other than those two things, I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I agree with you, shocker, but yeah, I agree. This match was two guys that are wrestling, and like you said, Benoit kind of coming in. I mean, not his prime because you wouldn't get into that till later, but just coming into his own, and you could watch this and be like, man, like Benoit's kind of a real player, or you could also say, well, yeah, this Benoit guy looks like he has a lot of potential, and that's because he really, really did. Same thing. I gave it a 3. Probably would have been 3.5 without the shenanigans, but yes.
Yeah. Speaking of being in the internet age, or the start of the internet, cut to the internet location, not even an actual room or anything. Chris Jericho is always on these around this time, which I thought was great. But he's essentially saying it doesn't matter who's going to win the Cruiserweight Battle Royal; they will all lose. It does not matter. Onto what I think could be the match of the night. I don't know about you, but we have Bryan Adams taking on Lex Luger. Obviously, if you've seen our show before, you know that it's totally sarcastic. And this match was exactly what you thought it was.
If there was a wrestling, well, I guess there is a wrestling IRS, but if there was a, I don't know, but Lex Luger owes a lot of people money for whatever he went out there and did that he called wrestling, because that ain't wrestling, Jack. Wrestling police need to come for him. He owes some wrestling taxes that he's been hiding away or something like that. It's just that man's been stealing from us for a long time.
Yeah. Maybe he's related to the Repo Man, or gotta go down to Cobb County, Georgia. Something. But it's always amazing how overhyped Lex Luger always was. And it doesn't matter if he was a babyface or a heel, or if he was a narcissist. It didn't matter.
because he just looks like $1 million. And I mean, even people that don't understand wrestling can look like, if you looked at him and you looked at Dean Malenko, I don't, I'm not slighting Malenko, but you just, like one of these guys is a wrestler and the other one's not. I think it's that. And people, I mean, he looks good in the ring, and not looks good in the ring, but when he's in the ring, he physically looks like $1 million. He runs the ropes like, oh man, yeah. And it's just everything that convinces after that is the bad thing.
Yeah. Not too much to go into with this one. There was nothing special about this. I gave it a half a star to be nice. Because at least it was a match. It was clean. Nobody got hurt. But this was two guys in '98 who, if this were 5 years earlier, this would have been a better match. But just Brian Adams being essentially the jobber of the NWO at this point. Vincent distracting. And then just the typical Lex Luger, get out kind of match. This was pretty rough. It felt like a 10-minute match, and it was 5. If that gives you a better idea.
All the Lex Luger like high clotheslines that are probably hitting you on the chin, which they shouldn't. God.
Yeah. You have it graded about the same.
I'm on behalf of Ref Bump. We don't grade. We're not grading any more Lex Luger matches. Incompletes. Lex gets incompletes.
Done. You heard it here first. 11 episodes in, we're finally broken.
I'm going to say that now, and then we're going to stumble in another damn year or 6 months. We're going to stumble upon one where I'm going to have to eat my words, but I'll take that when it comes. Incomplete.
All right. I want to spend a good chunk of time on this next one because there are names that we were talking about this last week after we went off of the air. Some of these pop too hard. So this is the Cruiserweight Battle Royal. The winner of this match gets a shot at the WCW Cruiserweight Champion, Chris Jericho. We would find out it would be the following match, but we'll get to that in a bit. So Chris Jericho is the special guest ring announcer for this, which he gives everybody kind of their own little moniker, I guess. Chavo Guerrero, the scourge of the Guerrero family. Damien 666, he can't afford a mask, so he uses paint. El Dandy, the winner of a Lou Ferrigno lookalike contest. Guerrero, the ugliest man in our sport. This is storyline though, because Chris Jericho beat Hoovy earlier in the year to get his mask off of him. Marty Jannetty, rock till he drops, rock never stop.
So these names, El Dandy. Golly.
We're good. Silver King. If he wins 12 matches, he'll be upgraded to Golden King.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Others in this match, El Grillo, Billy Kidman, Lenny Lane, Psychosis, Super Cal, Viano 4, and Dwight Parker. Just kidding. It's Johnny Swinger.
Johnny Swinger.
Crazy to think. We keep doing these, and somehow we find somebody buried in one of these match cards that's on TV today. Like we just watched last night, Impact Wrestling Under Siege, and they had the cutaway to Swinger's Palace, and there he is, Johnny Swinger.
And it's cool. It's always like maybe this is just me. I always love it more when it's the guy and he has he's kept his name, It's always like more kudos. Like he's Johnny Swinger, and he still was Johnny Swinger. He's not like Johnny, Awesome or something like that. I always love it when these guys manage to keep their name, to keep the whole bit going on for 30, 40 years.
Yeah. Unless you're Brutus the Barber Beefcake, in which you have a new gimmick every time you wake up.
You leave Brother Brutai alone.
But yeah, this is your typical battle royal. The last two in the ring, Ciclope and Juventud Guerrero.
Not Ciclope.
There you go. Yeah, that's exactly it. A long stare down, shake hands, and Juventud Guerrero eliminates himself. And we get the grand reveal that it wasn't the Ciclope, it was the Dean Malenko. Him and Chris Jericho have been feuding for a while now. And you see Jericho just shocked and it was
jaw drop.
I knew this was Malenko, but it was still a great reveal. I loved it. The Battle Royal, though, I gave it, I gave it 2 stars out of 5. It wasn't anything exciting. I think, knowing what was going to happen at the end of this, but going in, if I didn't know this was, Malenko, this would have been a toss up. Probably more than likely Juventud Guerrero, but
yeah,
it was all right. Battle Royal.
It was better than I remember it being. Granted, I haven't watched Slamboree '98 in a long time, but this is.
I have this at 2.5. Sorry.
Okay. I had 2. I'm always like a half star under you, but So I had it at 2. I enjoyed it. It was really fun looking at some of the old names that you hadn't seen in a while. Guys, for me at least, that you really, really hadn't seen in a while. And it just goes to show you how good this Cruiserweight division really is and how it was been lauded for years and years and years. Some of these guys were never going to be Cruiserweight champions. That's fine. But they still were really good wrestlers and put on really good matches in WCW. So I think there's something to be said about that.
Yeah. Looking back into my notes before we move on to the actual title match, Super Callow, he has a 1 in 10 chance of winning. El Grio, which is some fat guy. I don't even know who it is. Billy Kidman. I've got some calamine lotion.
I think the best one is the Silver King. If he wins more matches, he'll be upgraded to gold.
Evan Courageous, 0 chance of winning. Psychosis. He has a lot of hubcaps in his collection.
Jericho.
Johnny Swinger. Ever heard of this guy? But yeah, that's definitely the best one. The Silver King. If 12 more, we upgraded to Golden King. But on to the actual match. It is the Cruiserweight Championship match. Dean Malenko taking on Chris Jericho. I wish this would have went longer. I know they probably cut it because Malenko was just in the Battle Royal. They didn't want to overwork, but yeah, this is a solid match. You already know these two guys can work.
Yeah.
They had a match at Uncensored. Not as good as that. I would say that's one of their best matches they've had. So if you
the one at Uncensored? Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But I've got this at a solid 3.5 out of 5. Malenko hasn't been seen since Mean Gene Okerlund called him a loser. He locked in the Texas Cloverleaf, and he's got it locked in, and so much emotion on his face. It was a great finish to a great kind of 2-man segment there, or like a 2-parter.
Back to back.
Yeah. This would be Dean Malenko's 4th and final Cruiserweight title.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm with it. So this match was good, and I think I thought too, for Dean being a professional, the energy level that he had was really good. Kind of after, I mean, granted they ran a Rumble, it wasn't like a one-on-one match before,
Yeah.
but he still showed up. It wasn't like, oh, the quality of this match is going to be down because he just wrestled. No. He professional, carried himself very well. The Texas Cloverleaf was great, and I think the combination of all this, of everything, kind of coming to a head right here, was really good.
Yeah. What did you grade it?
3.
Yeah, we're always within a half a star of each other, and
Yeah.
that's the great thing, because it and that's not a bad thing, because if this match would have went longer, I could have graded it higher.
Which is weird because you usually, not you personally, but you usually don't think that. You usually think like, oh well, I would have graded it higher if it was 15 minutes, 5 minutes shorter. So
Yeah.
there's some, I think that's something to be said, about that.
So I have to be upset here for a second, because Jericho is ready to get the push here. He was ready to, kind of get bumped out of the cruiserweight division, on to bigger and better things. And you had Malenko, who, just coming back, big emotional win, ready to, get some other cruiserweight matches going, some new matches, and they continue this feud, which was awful. I don't know if they just didn't want to, if they just didn't believe that he could be bigger than what he already was as a cruiserweight, or if his shtick wouldn't work, maybe for a television championship. But I think it's clear, and he kind of danced around this when he was on the Stone Cold podcast. But he wasn't going to be a world heavyweight championship guy, because the top of the card was the main event WCW guys and any member of the NWO.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's just how it was back then. And also, you got to think too, wrestling times are different. Jericho was Chris Jericho, but he didn't have the weight that he has right now. And I think a lot of people forget that. I'm not saying you did, Codd, but when you go back and you look at some of these older things, and I also think he was ahead of his time. Mm-hmm. I'm not bashing Jericho, but if you really sit back and look at it, I could almost, is he gold on the mic and his stick is great? Yes. But at the same time, you almost, I wouldn't necessarily hold it against somebody if they were looking at it in its totality and thinking like, maybe this might not work, as a heavyweight champion, this, that, another. I wouldn't begrudge them, terribly. Now, once you mix NWO in, well, then now we're talking about something different. But I just think he was actually probably so ahead of his time, even back then, where people were like, I don't know if we could do this,
There was always that fear with him, and I don't.
Yeah.
So we get the Vinnie Mac cam. Haha.
I sure do.
White limo shows up. We don't, we don't see who it is, but Tony Schiavone taking a cheap shot at JR. It's a whatever segment. On to the Bowery death match. So essentially, this is a lethal lockdown match, with last man standing rules. And it's going to be good when you have commentary saying that it's like War Games, Oh my God!
Just if you were confused, we're letting you know.
Yeah, just in case you didn't know.
Was there any confusion? This is kind of like War Games.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
So sorry, Codd. So is that like WrestleMania Backlash? So it's kind of like that.
So this is Dimedale's Page versus Raven. It was this was okay for what it was. And you have your run-ins by the flock, even with the cage with the lid on it. We're getting close to the end of the match, and DDP is catching everybody with diamond cutters left and right.
Yep.
He gets a great one with Billy Kidman. He's he catches him from hanging from the ceiling, which is a great spot. Raven hits an even flow DDT. I think this should have been the finish with all the run-ins.
Overbooked.
Yeah. And like I said, this is the last man standing. So all the run-ins, finisher, DDP beats the count. Raven hits a diamond cutter. I think if the DDT wasn't the finish, this should have been. But he gets up again. Raven tries to hit DDP with a chair. DDP ducks, hits the diamond cutter. They're both down. DDP barely gets up to get the win. Exactly like you said, overbooked to hell. The finish really took me out of this. I gave it 2 stars out of 5. I was fine with the run-in because that was the shtick. That was kind of the Flock's way of, working. And I was good with it. And then the DDT finish, then the diamond cutter should have been the finish. And then it's just overbooking to overbook. And it hit a point where there just wasn't anything to get excited about. So now you're just kind of grasping at straws here. And it was a little disappointing.
I'm with you. If you know me on this channel, I love me some Raven.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fine with the Flock, like you said, doing everything they're doing. It's just, it gets to the point where you overbook it to the point of no return. Where it's like, well, I don't need to see, we've done everything we're going to do, and I don't need to see anything else. Once you kick out of this, kick out of that, and this run in and that run in. And again, like, this is WCW, so I get it. But man, like, it just, like, it almost feels like booking for the booking for the booking. It's like layers of inception and booking. It's ridiculous. So I gave it 1 star. I wanted to give it more because I love me some Raven, but man, it's just, this is that prime time of WCW though, where they do this, and it's not. There's still some overbooking later as well, but
yeah. So I totally skipped over the whole Riot Squad angle throughout this match. It's only to get the reveal at the end. Okay, so the Riot Squad, not your current day Riot Squad.
not to be confused.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in case you thought this was working. Essentially getting rid of the Flock during the match. And then they jump DDP in the ring too. DDP gets out after the match. There's one Riot Squad member in the ring, handcuffing the Flock to the cage, overselling, overbooking.
To the wazoo, to the moon.
This is the only silver lining. He reveals himself to be Mortis. Good old
Codd, I'm going to stop you there. What you're not going to do. I mean, no, you didn't. But I'm just going to let you know what we're not going to do in this show is talk bad about Mortis.
Listen, I'm with you. I'm there 100%.
Okay.
I mean, it sucks that he had to debut here with this.
Yes. What a great time to WCW. Like, I know we'll put him in, like, just terrible.
So essentially this kind of makes sense because we had seen now for a while that Canyon was trying to be a part of the Flock, and them just not having him join or be a member of. He gives Raven a chair shot, and there's your feud. You got Mortis versus the Flock moving forward. Then we get awful, like, handy cam footage of the security team looking for Vince or even Steve Austin.
God, I wouldn't say awful. That's just how it was back then.
So this chase, I'll call it a chase because it's a wild goose chase, if anything. But they have to clean up all the crap in the ring. So this goes on for a while. And then we get into the Eddie Guerrero versus Ultimo Dragon. Essentially, if Ultimo Dragon wins, Chavo is free, I guess you could say. But what I'll let you lead off because you're a big Ultimo Dragon fan. So am I. But what did you think of the match?
I actually think the match was fine, but I don't think it was as good as it could have been. And it pains me to say that because these two guys are amazing. Ultimo Dragon, low key, is probably one of my favorite wrestlers. Yeah, I feel like these guys could wrestle 10 times and it would be great. Every time would be great. Maybe one wouldn't be. And I feel like we got the one. And again, not that this was a bad match. It wasn't a bad match, Codd.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seemed like not they were off, but
rushed.
Yeah, time. Two guys to try. They weren't. It wasn't like a bad match, as in like two guys trying to do things that they can't do. No, it was two guys trying to put on. I think sometimes we forget, like, two guys trying to put on a good match in a small amount of time can also be. You can shoot yourself in the foot there, and it's not. I wouldn't put it on these guys. They're trying to be professionals, like they always are.
Yeah.
It just was missing. It just wasn't as good. Again, by no means was it a bad match, but it was. When you look at it on paper and you go back and watch, you're like, man, you just assumed it was going to be a burn. You like, oh, would this be match of the night? Easy,
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to clarify on the stipulations for this match. It's a very convoluted storyline. So Chavo challenged Eddie at first. If Chavo won, Eddie would have to start playing by the rules again. This would be well before his line.
Yeah.
If he lost, he would have to essentially be Eddie's.
Or would it? Sorry.
No, you're good. So then we get to this match. And Ultimo Dragon was tired of it. He was tired of Eddie's ways, and he wanted Chavo to break free and
Good Samaritan.
Yeah. So there was no stipulation on the flip side of this. Just if Eddie Guerrero lost, Chavo Guerrero was kind of free, if you would.
Yeah.
So the finish to this, Chavo kind of shoots himself in the foot. He gets on the ropes. He starts arguing with Eddie. Cross wires, miscommunication. Chavo goes crashing off the apron. Ultimo Dragon tries to get the jump on Eddie. Ultimo Dragon goes to check on him. Eddie Guerrero suplex, frog splash. That's it. I've got this at 3 stars out of 5. I wanted more from this, as we've already said, but time constraints, whatever you want to call it, they did not get the appropriate amount of time to work.
No, I gave it 3. I wanted to give it 2, but I bumped it up just because I'm a mark for Ultimo Dragon and Eddie. But yeah, it just maybe we don't have some of these weird segments, and again, this is WCW at this time. Maybe we don't have some of these other weird segments and matches that go too long, and we could give these guys 5-6 more minutes. Please and thank you.
Yeah. So to make things worse, Chavo decides to put the boots to Ultimo Dragon.
Does he ever?
Yeah. So we're shown a shot of Vince McMahon's dressing room. His star says Vince, the reason for the ratings, McMahon.
Let me ask you this, Codd. Did you, going back and watching this show, or just these old WCW ones, did you forget how hard they were going in on WWE or WWF?
I really
like how, I mean, like all, and again, different time. So like not even like hint, nod, no, like all the way in,
Yeah. And you almost think about it. This was, months before we would, get the real shot taken of, oh, that'll put the butts in the seats.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think I think that for me, I almost felt like it was a little later where they really started to go in. I felt like it was like 99, but now that you think about it, the finger poke of doom was January 99, the same night that Mankind won the title. So it makes sense to kind of slowly build to this, or to that from this. But enough of that. We need some good wrestling. Perry Saturn is up next. Saturn, no slouches in his own right. Getting a shot at the WCW United States Heavyweight Championship. Who's the champion right now, Jeff?
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it. Listen, when Perry Saturn isn't carrying around a mop, he's a really good worker, and he's absolutely underrated. So there's that. And Gilbert is a champion.
All right. So small correction: Goldberg is our WCW United States Heavyweight Champion. This is more than a squash match, but so at least they gave
not by too much, but yes.
Yeah. I still didn't rate this high. You already know who wins. They have Goldberg coming into this match as 87-0. And in 2 months he would be your world champion. So spoiler alert there.
87-0. Why not make it 97 or 107-0?
Yeah. But this is a half a star, and that's just for the respect that Saturn deserves. Goldberg at this time was the hottest thing in professional wrestling, regardless of your personal feelings. There was nobody as red hot of a babyface as Goldberg at this point, and the matches were awful. Is the bad thing. They were very basic because Goldberg couldn't wrestle, and it was very much so. Maybe a power slam, maybe a shoulder tackle, or like shoulder tackle into the corner. But it was spear, jackhammer, get out of there.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me. You guys know how I feel about Goldberg. Again, it was a star just for Perry Saturn. But yeah, you're right. My feelings aside, Goldberg is the hottest thing in wrestling, or it seems that way. And it's the ball's rolling, and it's about to pick up steam here for Goldberg, at least, and some other pay-per-views. But yeah, you're right, Codd.
Yeah. So Goldberg would win. we're just gonna briefly touch on this. I'm gonna move on. This next match is supposed to be Eric Bischoff versus Vince McMahon. Obviously, McMahon, we've said before, not going to show up. Michael Buffer out to do the announcing, to introduce Vince. And he informs us that Bischoff has won by forfeit and disqualification.
Yeah. Oh, easy.
Yeah. So, not a match. We'll keep moving. So the next match, Grudge Match from Hell.
From Hell.
That's how it was announced. And I said, and I'm looking through my notes and, all of my informative sites. And I'm like, what? What Grudge Match from Hell? You did have Roddy Piper here as a special guest referee for Randy Savage versus Bret Hart.
I remember watching this and thinking like none of this makes any sense. Just like what Bret Hart's grudging with Piper, I can understand a little bit, but if you're carrying some of that over from WWF, you know what I'm saying? But Macho Man, like, I don't like. Again, I'm not going to complain about watching Bret Hart wrestle Macho Man. I guess, granted, it is in 1998, but it just the way it was booked, or the billing, the booking, and the billing up to it. I don't think I understood it. And then me loving Bret Hart, just watching him in WCW, like he's fine because he still is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But just seeing him in WCW, they had no idea what to do with this guy. And I know we talk about that all the time. And again, probably some of it is Bret Hart's fault too. That's fair. But like they just had no idea. None at all. But
yeah. Codd. What did you think of Michael Buffer introducing Bret Hart?
I hated it. The worst. I mean, Buffer's not the worst, but just again, it's like it for me, Codd. It's like I don't know. It's like having like a fast car or like having something really nice and then like lending it to like your cousins who just don't care about it or something. You know what I'm saying? Or like you let your friend borrow it and it's like, well, that's not how you're supposed to use this thing, like it's just I don't know. It hurts my heart.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I think it was really dumb, but again, hilarious. Can I tell you how sad I was at the end of this match?
Yeah, it makes two of us, but go ahead.
For all the points that you said, this is Bret Hart versus Randy Savage in 1998, not 1993 or 94 or hell 95.
Yeah, 6.
Yeah. Even I mean it overbooked still. So Bret wins via the sharpshooter. But it seemed like neither one cared. And I'm a Bret Hart guy, and but this is. There are moments when I've seen Bret Hart in WCW looks like the Bret Hart of old, and then there are segments and matches where I look and it's like he just does not care at all.
No, and again, I'm not defending Bret Hart, but I think also him and Macho Man are definitely from a different time of way you do business, the way you carry yourself in the ring. And I think sometimes when you get over places and they say, the grass ain't always greener, well, sometimes it ain't. And I think you got two guys in here wrestling who are really consummate pros and professionals, legends in wrestling, if you will. And with all the politics, with the NWO and the top guys, they probably just got over there in the company and realized like, well, it's just going to be this. So who cares? Who cares? Like no matter what we do, who cares? The NWO is going to reign supreme, and all these guys are going to reign supreme. And like we talked earlier, like guys like Jericho, Benoit, Guerrero, and Ultimo, the whole card is hampered because, you know, you got to work from the NWO and what they want to do first and then work back from there. So, I mean, at least that's what I think. And again, I'm not defending him. He probably should be professional, be a good wrestler all the time. But it's just like, I mean, all of us have had a job or something where we're like, I'm starting a job next week anyway. Like when you're younger, I'll just go to another job. I don't know. What do you think, Codd?
So I skipped over this for a reason, and that was how we got to the sharpshooter finish. Is we got a run in, obviously WCW. We can't be bothered to work a match, but you can run in if you want. It's Hulk Hogan. Now. He's coming in. He clips Savage's knee. We get to sharpshooter.
It's like, hey, this is a top guy. This is a top guy. Like, let's just put them together for the sake of putting the top guys together. Which, this match, all right, I guess.
This match was agonizingly long too.
Yeah.
This match was 17 minutes almost.
Ooh, I wouldn't have guessed that. I'd have guessed 12, 13, 15.
Yeah. I can't get it higher than 2 stars. I can't.
No, and it hurts me to if we're grading a match between Bret Hart and Macho Man Randy Savage and we're giving it a 2-star. What's that tell you?
It's in the late 90s and nobody cares.
Stink of WCW.
Yeah. Before we get to the main event, it's so frustrating when you look at this card on paper. And the potential.
Yep.
And there's not a match on here that has been over 3 to 3.5.
That's literally what I said. Like when we do these reviews, because we obviously can't remember everything, So we look at these pay-per-views, you look at them on paper, like I just said, and you're like, I was thinking like, oh man, this is going to be a really good one, Like I remember what happened at the end, but I kind of couldn't remember everything else. And then you look at it and you're like, wow, we thought it was going to go left and it went right, or we thought it was going to go right and it went left.
Yeah. But with the stink of that, let's get to our main event. It is for the WCW World Tag Team titles because our world champion couldn't be bothered to wrestle tonight.
No.
It is your champions. That'd be the Outsiders, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, taking on Sting and the Giant. So the storyline here is per WCW, so it was convoluted. The Giant, being the newest member of NWO Black and White or Hollywood, whatever, was teaming with Sting, who was WCW through and through, to face the NWO Wolfpack or Red and Black, to face the Outsiders. It's so muddy, and it'll be even more muddier at the end of this.
Yeah, don't turn your back on the Wolfpack. might get put in a body bag.
Well, I wish that. Jesus Christ, this thing was so bad. Go first, because I'm gonna crap all over this.
Okay. I'll make it short and sweet. We talked about it again earlier. The amount of bad booking and run-ins and just all of this stuff. I don't mind a run-in or something in a match to make somebody else lose, and you're like, oh man, like cool, no problem. I got no problem with that. That's wrestling. But to the extent it kind of feels like, and I guess I am knocking AEW, but sometimes like you got guys that are friends, they're in the business together. Hey, we'll do this, like, if you're sitting back in an office and you guys are all around the table and you're putting your heads together trying to do it, okay, that's one thing. But if you guys are just riding in the car, going to McDonald's to get a burger, and you're like, oh, we should do this, oh, we should do that, no, we should do this, even this would be cool. Well, then now you're just kind of you're pulling your own chain, and I think that's what's we talked about earlier. That's what you're getting from these NWO guys. We'll do this and that and this and that, and then later we'll do this, and next thing you know, I mean, you're just there's nobody to stop you or police you or to tell you no or I don't know. That's probably not a good idea. No. So and then you get matches like this. But go ahead, Codd. Bury your way.
Now you summed it up. The fact that other than Sting, everybody in this match is a heel, but they're supposed to be the baby faces, but we don't know, who to cheer for, who's really on whose side. Who's supposed to be really, gunning for who? And it doesn't help that commentary is absolutely effing clueless.
Yep. Well, because they don't know.
And it's sad because, Shivani's not awful. In the late stages of WCW, he was terrible. But he can call matches. We've seen it. We've done other WCW shows on here that he's on point, but it was overbooked. It was underwhelming. It was a main event because, again, I'm going to harp on this because you're in the midst of essentially a war with another company. And you're putting on a pay-per-view where your world champion isn't wrestling. And you put this dreck on last.
Yep.
So
it's nepotism.
Nash goes for a jackknife powerbomb. Scott Hall levels Kevin Nash with the title. Giant pins him for the win, celebrates with Scott Hall. And then on top of that, I forgot about Dusty Rhodes at ringside. Christ.
Yep.
Dusty Rhodes was out with Hall and Nash for this one, but celebrates with them two cementing his place in the NWO Black and White. Sting salty. He refuses to celebrate the win. 0 stars.
Yeah. Yes.
This was the cherry on top of the poop Sunday that was this pay-per-view. It was. Yep.
And then all of those guys, probably not named Sting, went back there and was like, yeah, that was great.
Yeah. And, not to mention that the next month we had the Great American Bash, and I'll bet you couldn't guess the main event.
and then let me ask you this: what do you think? What do you think Bret Hart and Macho Man were doing watching this match? You know what I'm saying? Watching all this unfold, like, well, that's what we thought.
So, your main event is for control of the World Tag Team Championship, Sting versus the Giant.
Yay.
And you don't even get your World Heavyweight Champion defending the title.
Nope. That'd be beneath him.
See if I'm upset about this now. He's in a throwaway tag match. I had really high hopes for this when I had picked this show for us to review. I'm really upset now. Listen,
having to relive the pain.
Gosh, it's as a kid. I think now I was just so naive.
But through kid lenses, you don't really understand. You can understand the wrestling, yes, and the storylines and all that, but you don't really. You kind of can't see that next step or that bigger picture,
Yeah, and
And it's probably good you don't, because you'll be ruined, I guess. You'll be tainted.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is that hindsight is always 2020. This show, other than the opener between Finlay and Benoit, hell, I'll even throw the Malenko and Jericho match, even for as short as it was, and the Eddie Guerrero Ultimo Dragon match. Those three were solid, which goes to show you, okay? 2 of the 3 of those are completely cruiserweight matches. And then the other one is, Fit Finlay, Chris Benoit. Like, 2 guys that can work. And then the other 2 cruiserweight matches. This was hard to get through.
Yeah, it was.
I gave this entire show, I gave this 1 star out of 5. I would not watch this show again. Even for the 3 matches that I enjoyed. And to top this all off, you had this recurring segment through this entire pay-per-view of this, dream scenario where you call out Vince McMahon, challenge him on the pay-per-view. You got the Vince McMahon cam to try and track him down throughout the show, and then
because he's there,
have a match.
Yeah, and then you put on this main event.
Yeah, and your champion can't defend. Can only be on the show for about 2 minutes.
Well, Vince. I mean, he probably didn't watch this, but let's just say, for research purposes, he was. He probably watched this main event and was like laughing to himself, like, "Oh, okay, sure, yeah. Good luck."
Yeah, that's the bad thing. Any last thoughts on this show, Jeff, before I bury it?
No. I'm glad it's over.
You know that old saying, don't smile, or don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened?
Yeah, you're right about that.
Just cry. It's fine.
Okay, there we go.
Guys, that's been another episode of the Ref Bump here. Down in the description below, you can check out where to find us on Facebook, and you're watching this on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Apple Podcast. If you enjoyed watching the Ref Bump and you would like to support us, go to kofi.com/pwo123. It's as easy as 123, just the price of a cup of coffee a day. You can support us continuing this show so I don't have to work my day-to-day anymore. As you can see directly below us, you can see our Twitter handles. Go follow us there. I have a little remorse for asking Jeff what his Twitter handle was every week. So I was like, let me just throw it on the video.
Yeah. There we go. Teamwork.
Yeah. For next time, we're taking a trip into the future. WWE, we're taking a look at Backlash 2005. Ooh. That is all for this week. That's Jeff Hall. I'm Codd Sinclair. We will see you next time.